Wonder and awe in God's presence is one of 7 gifts which are traditionally listed as being of the Holy Spirit. Many years ago, we used to name this gift as fear of the Lord. Today, because fear of the Lord does not seem like such a gift to many people, and because it really doesn't fully capture the magnitude of this great gift of God, we name it as wonder and awe in God's presence. Now, the number 7, when used in the Bible, indicates completion, fullness, or fulfillment. In the Bible, numbers can be taken literally sometimes, as when we learn, for example, that a man and a woman had 6 sons. But just as often, the numbers are symbolic, and their use teaches something or reveals a truth that might otherwise have lain hidden and undiscovered amongst the details of the story. When we modern people use numbers, we tend to be much more precise in their use, much less symbolic. Let's take an example. You have probably learned that there are 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit given to us in baptism, sealed and affirmed for us in the sacrament of confirmation, and then available to us to draw on all through life to strengthen us. These gifts are the tools we need in order to live the Christian life. And you've probably learned that these 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit are wisdom, knowledge, understanding, courage, right judgment, reverence, and wonder and awe in God's presence. We can take this number, 7, to be a mathematical truth, revealing to us that there are indeed 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And this would be a wonderful truth, revealing God's generosity and providence in offering these gifts to guide, sustain, and inform our path through life. There is another way that we could take this number, the 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. What if this number 7 really does retain its biblical sense of fulfillment, completion, or fullness? Then, when we name the number of the gifts of the Holy Spirit as 7, we would not so much be numbering them as we would be making a statement of faith, proclaiming that the gifts of our God are so bounteous, so many, so plentiful and present, that indeed God can be said to have poured forth these wondrous gifts into our lives. There aren't only 7 gifts of the Holy Spirit. There are many, many, many gifts of the Holy Spirit. And furthermore, these gifts are not held in the hands of a stingy God who measures them out to us in cupfuls. These gifts are poured out, rained out by a God of bounty. Sometimes the gifts are obvious to us. Sometimes we may have to look for the gift or the blessing, but it is surely there. Even more wondrous, these gifts of the Holy Spirit are not one size fits all. These gifts are offered to each of us when we need them, as we need them, and for as long as we need them. The truth, I think, is that we have often thought about the gifts of the Holy Spirit as gifts from the Holy Spirit to me. What about if we fine-tune this a bit? What if these gifts are the gifts of God's very self? What if the wonder is that they are also God's call to us? They reveal to us a little bit of what God is like, and then they point the way to a way of becoming more like the very God in whose image and likeness we're created, live, move, and have our being. So, what can we say about the Holy Spirit's gift of wonder and awe in God's presence? In Psalm 8, we hear these words, "O Lord our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you've established, what are human beings that you are mindful of them? mortals, that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than God, and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the seas. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Wonder and awe is the only fitting response of us human beings in the face of an encounter with a God who is very close as our own heartbeats, and still absolute mystery. I've spent much of my life working in coastal outport communities in Newfoundland and Labrador, and there I've met many people who've taught me how to cultivate a sense of wonder and awe. When I was a child, I sat on a cliff at Logie Bay near St. John's with my grandfather. For a long time we were both silent, watching the waves crashing against the base of the cliff below, then receding, and then rising to crash once again. Finally, my grandfather turned to me, pointed out at the ocean, and said, "That's what forever is like." That was an expression of my grandfather's wonder and awe in the face of infinity, in the presence of God. Years later, 30 years after my grandmother's death, I asked him about her. I asked him what she was like, for I had never met her. His answer was, "She was wonderful. She was my best friend." That is an expression of wonder and awe at a love that still shone long after the death of one of the partners. That was an expression of gratitude to God, who made such love possible. I can be moved to wonder and awe by gazing at a beautiful sunset. I can just as easily be moved to wonder and awe by watching TV news coverage of a tornado. And I can be moved to wonder and awe by observing or taking part in the outreach and relief efforts that almost always flood forth after a natural disaster, such as a tornado. But if wonder and awe is first God's gift or an attribute of God, we have to ask, what moves God to wonder and awe? Do you know the answer? I think St. Alphonsus had it right. He said, "For God, heaven is the human heart." I think that God takes great delight in and experiences wonder and awe when God gazes with love on the pinnacle of God's creation, you. I think that God is moved to wonder and awe when God looks at you and me and says, "Wow, wasn't I ever clever in creating Jane or Bill?" How do we grow then in that wonder and awe in God's presence? As with the other gifts of the Holy Spirit, we grow in wonder and awe by practicing the gift. We grow in wonder and awe by mindfully practicing a profound awareness of and gratitude for the mystery, the wonder, the unfathomable providence of God. It's a bit like having a spiritual bank account. The more I take out of this bank account, the more there is to draw on. It grows by being used. Another way to look at this is to say that it's like a spiritual muscle. It grows and becomes stronger by being exercised. And so today, I ask you to get out and get some exercise, spiritual exercise. All around you, there are gifts of God at which to marvel. Take some time today to marvel at something or someone God has placed in your path. And take a moment to allow the awe of God's goodness to wash over you. Glory be to God, whose power, working in us, can accomplish infinitely more than we can ask or imagine.